Well, Sam, we just got done recapping the first week of fall camp. We'll get into some conference realignment talk too, but I'll start with fall camp. What are your thoughts on the first week of Nebraska football under Coach Rule?
Well, I think there's probably some changes for some of those guys. We'll get a little bit more into that today. Now that they're through a week of it, um, obviously they're trying to create a very different kind of culture. Sort of starting at the whatever you want to call it, starting at zero and building it up from there. Um, I'm guessing that Rules probably enjoyed it for the most part. I'm guessing the players have found it interesting. I don't know if they've probably always loved it, but they've probably found it interesting along the way. So, yeah, like I think there's some interesting aspects of camp. Mouth Farmer is gone. That's too bad. That would have helped with depth. Teddy Prohaska's out. That's too bad. Not sure, like they're probably going to be real smart and real safe with bringing him back the right way because at this point can't afford any more injuries there. So I'm sure they'll be really smart with that. We'll see where it goes from here. I think the players. I mean, they're picking the players they want to talk, so those guys are all pretty happy with what's going on. But you see the coaches come in and they're drenched in sweat. I mean, everybody's working really, really hard.
Sam, I'm curious. You mentioned how, so much of this first fall camp is going to be about laying the groundwork for culture and everything like that. Is there, I'm going to ask you to compare here, and I know people don't love that, but is there an area where you think there was kind of the biggest deficit for them that they need to make up, whether it's in terms of culture or accountability or anything like that?
Yeah, I think there's, probably just a sense of wanting to win, wanting to get ahead of themselves, just wanting to win the games instead of putting in all the work and training that it takes to win games in the fourth quarter. I think Nebraska is very satisfied, with being close a lot and then losing the games and chalking that up to bad luck or needing a break or these things like that. And the media is more than happy to comply, and so I think Rule's trying to change that. I think what Rule understands and what Trev Alberts understands is Nebraska does not have an unlimited amount of time to get this thing together.
Mm-hmm.
He's talked about it a couple of different times about making Nebraska nationally relevant, and that becomes even more true now that you have Oregon and Washington in the system. It's going to become increasingly difficult to become old Nebraska or even medium Nebraska if you cannot get out of this tailspin soon. And so I think the kind of work that they're putting in is the kind of work that's necessary to get the job done. And not to say that the previous coaching staff didn't do that, but I think there's a sense of urgency surrounding the proceedings that make it evident that everybody knows that things got to turn around here pretty darn quick. Maybe not this year, but next year, the year after.
Sam, I'm happy you brought up Miles Farmer because Ravi and I went back and forth a little bit this morning about guaranteed roster spots. If he were a guy that would have been guaranteed to be slotted in as a starter this year, as you look back to last season, not a lot of guys that would make that list, but would Miles Farmer have been one of them for you that would have been a guaranteed starter, no doubt, if everything went according to plan with him and the culture and the relationship with this staff in Nebraska for this season?
No, I don't think so. I think he would have been a major contributor. I think he would have played a lot of football. I don't know that he would have started. I think Isaac Gifford obviously was going to win that composition and probably had already won it in some ways. And then I think Corey Collier's there, and I think Deshaun Singleton and Omar Brown and Malcolm Hartsock can play safety too if you need him to. If Tommy Hill really turns the corner as a cornerback, he's got all the talent to be really talented, at that position. And so, but you can move Hartsock wherever you need to move it. He can play all those positions. So I don't know. I mean, I think Farmer was going to be a factor for sure on the team. I don't know that he was going to have 73 tackles or whatever he had last year. Again, he might have been But you know what? This is a great opportunity for him to maybe do something different than he's done in the past. I mean, you look at, we'll see if he's able to become immediately eligible somewhere. I think he's graduated, so I think he can do that. But this is his 5th year on campus, and I think he's got 2 years of eligibility left, counting the COVID year. So this is a great opportunity for him to go somewhere else, and I'm sure he'll have opportunities at good schools. And maybe he can go closer to home. Maybe he can go, to the SEC. Maybe he can go to the Big Ten. I don't know that he's the fastest guy in the world, so I don't know if the SEC is the right spot or not. But certainly there's homes in the ACC and the Big Ten for that guy. I mean, he can play major college football and it's smart and all the other things. So we'll see where it leads him. But I don't know that he would have started here.
Sam, kind of sticking with the starters question there, and I know we're very early in fall camp, but is there? I kind of mentioned that I think Jeff Sims is the only guy I'm 100% sure is going to start. Is there a longer list for you, or do you think it really is genuinely pretty wide open? I know there's probably spots on the line and guys you feel pretty good about, but I think if I really had to be put to it, Jeff Sims is about the only guy that I would say is for sure starting against Minnesota, assuming health.
No, I think that I'm more confident than you are at this point. Billy Kemp, Marcus Washington, Nate Borkircher, Ben Scott, Bryce Benhart, Turner Corcoran. I feel pretty good about all those guys starting. We'll see with the guard situation because they have a rotation there. I don't know exactly how they're going to play that out, but the fact that Prohaska's hurt means Corcoran's going to play left tackle, and you're going to have Ethan Piper probably and Nuri Nwili at the guard spot with Henry Latubsky as a backup. So I think your line will be very close to set. Running back, I think, still up in the air. Number 3 wide receiver still up in the air, but so long as Marcus Washington's healthy, he's gonna start. And Billy Kemp, he's the best receiver on the team. So I feel very confident that he's going to play. So that's on the offense. And then on the defense, yeah, I mean, we have a sense on 5 or 6. I think that seem pretty likely, but the defense is a little more set, So yeah, I mean, I think they've had a pretty good idea of who some of the guys are, just based on necessity. I mean, it's August 7th today. Mm-hmm. You need to start locking in, and my sense is they've probably locked in pretty well at a number of the offensive line spots.
Sam, we heard on Saturday Coach Rule say a strength of the defense was the safeties. I kind of lean. That's an obvious choice for me too, but I kind of lean defensive line as well. I don't think a lot of people are as confident in their abilities as I am, as I shared some opinions last week. But could I put them up against the safeties here as the strength of the defense, or am I just way out of the ballpark when I say that?
You cut out there for a second. What's the position?
Defensive line.
No, I don't think that they're among the strengths of the team at this point. No.
So I'm out on my island, and that's where I'll stand then.
Yeah. No, I don't. I think that's going to be a group that needs to come along. Obviously, Ty Robinson is a seasoned veteran. Nash Hutmaker has reshaped his body. One of the tricky conversations about what they're about to do with this defense is one of the reasons you run it is so that you don't have to be great on the defensive line. As Matt Rule said on BTN, you're never going to see the same front twice. You're never going to see the same scheme twice. Like it moves around a lot. And so what you call a defensive lineman can change from play to play. And it's one of the reasons why you run this, is that you don't feel like, there may come a day where you get 4 dudes that are just, that's a defensive end, a nose, and a 2 technique. And you go to that 4-3 and you have a 4-man pass rush and you get it done that way. They certainly had some teams in the past that did it just like that. But they don't have that right now. And so I think Robinson and Hutmaker, Gunnarsson has a lot to prove. He only has 8 career tackles, I think. Rupan Buckley's barely played. Elijah Judy barely played. Who am I missing here? If Colton Feast were back, maybe you'd feel a little bit better about it. But yeah, I mean, they've got a ways to go at that position. But again, one of the things that's going to happen with this defense is you're going to see things happen. You're going to be like, well, the defensive line's playing really well. And it's the nature of the defense. It's going to be challenging to always know where your landmarks are, things like that. Now, what I will say in return, though, is there are going to be times when that defense is right, and there's going to be times when that defense is wrong. When you have this kind of scheme, you're going to miss. And there's going to be some moments where a play creases, and you better have good tacklers in the back end. I think that's really one of the keys of the scheme. It's going to create some negative plays for you, turnovers, maybe even an interception or two. But it is also going to create some situations where if you stunt or you blitz into the wrong thing, and they got the right play on, and that happens sometimes, you better tackle, because otherwise those plays are going to be house.
We're talking with Sam McKewon from the Omaha World Herald. Sam, I want to change gears for you a little bit here and get into conference realignment a little bit. Obviously, kind of over the weekend, we saw the apparent death of the Pac-12. And I guess just what was your overall thoughts as you're kind of watching this happen in real time, where it seems like Oregon and Washington are going, and then maybe they're staying, and then all of a sudden they're gone, and less than 24 hours later, they lose Arizona State, and Utah to the Big 12 as well. Just as somebody who's been watching college football for a long time, obviously the Pac-12 has got this huge, rich history. What's your thought process as this thing that we thought maybe might happen with the Pac-12 because of their TV deal just kind of collapses in front of our very eyes?
TV deal wasn't any good, and what the Pac-12 commissioner was putting out there was optimistic at best. I don't know why 1.7 million people would subscribe to watch Pac-12 football on Apple Plus, or 2.3 million. I don't know. I mean, there could be existing users that that turn it on, but it's one of these deals where the Pac-12 just didn't have a ton of options left after USC and UCLA left, and Oregon and Washington had a lifeline. They're going to take it. It's not that financially lucrative. They'll be basically a Big 12 member in the Big 10. They'll make less money, but they'll survive. And it was going to be hard. It was going to be really hard for the Pac-12 to survive the way that it was going, based on the number of people who were watching the games, the amount of institutional support in that league. You have certainly some schools like Oregon that are all in. You have some schools like Washington State and Oregon State that are in, but they don't have the same kind of financial resources and department power that Oregon does. And then you have Stanford and Cal, and they probably do have the resources, but they don't care. And so it's a challenging league from that perspective, is that you have a lot of different kinds of approaches. And I know Stanford's athletic department does quite well in the Directors Cup, but that's predicated on very small sports that only 10 to 12 schools pursue, and not only is that a scholarship way, smaller things that are related to training facilities out there and things like that have nothing to do with football or men's basketball or some of the other sports. Stanford's very good in other things. I mean, they're very good in volleyball and women's basketball and baseball and softball, and so they do a lot of things out there. But the main thrust of it is that a lot of those sports are sort of self-supported. So, I don't know. I mean, I think I'm supposed to have an emotion about this, and maybe if I wasn't in August, and I had, just hours and hours of work every day finishing our special section, and maybe I would have more of an emotion. What I know is that I don't feel the same way. What I know is that I feel like we have to be honest about the nature of college athletics, and we also have to be honest about what's going on in academia. And the reality is, fewer people are going to college, and universities need more people. Or there are fewer people who are going to these major 4-year colleges that cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. College debt is a real thing, and they need to find ways to financially support what they're doing on the other side. There's a much larger conversation to have about academia and higher education that isn't really going to be had, not at least by sports writers. Sports writers are just going to lament that something has happened, and that stinks. So I think a lot of sports writers' thoughts could be, adequately, summarized by Eli Drinkwitz over the weekend. It doesn't summarize my feelings at all. But I'm an outlier this way. Like, I don't see Eli Drinkwitz as grandstanding about the issue. He's not going to change anything, and nothing he's going to do is going to change. He's just saying that to get Twitter points, which he did. And that's not the realistic way forward. You can't just say we're not going to regulate NIL and transfer portal because Oregon and Washington went to the Big Ten, and we needed perfect moral alignment on all these things. That's not how things work. And so I think hopefully there's a way forward where you can make. On the flip side, I think Muffet McGraw had an interesting thought on Twitter of maybe can you separate college football from everything else and let the rest of it be conference models, and that may be something that they're able to explore. College football drives a lot of this conversation. A lot of these other sports don't make money. They may prefer being in a conference model. Of course, Muffet McGraw coached at Notre Dame, and they won't be in a conference. But I understand what she's saying, and I think she's probably at the better point. That if we're going to start talking about the welfare of Olympic sports or smaller sports, let's talk to the Olympic sports coaches more than we worry about what Urban Meyer and Eli Drinkwitz say about it. Let's see what they want to do and have some conversations about where they want to go. People are wondering why athletes haven't said anything. Well, I don't know that the athletes care that much. We're going to say they care, and I'm sure we can put the words in their mouth, but you're telling them, hey, instead of flying for 3 hours, you're going to fly for 5, and you're going to go see places you haven't been to before and play a bunch of new teams. Now, how much do you hate that? And I don't know what kind of response you're going to get back. Most of these athletes are extremely well supported academically. They have incredible academic support institutions at their schools. Many of them graduate either a year to a year and a half early. They certainly do it in Nebraska. I think that our concern about their academic performance is undue. GPAs are going up, and up, all over the place. And so I think there's a lot of consternation around this, but a lot of that stuff, if you really follow college athletics closely, that a lot of that is just sort of sentimentalism. We may be moving toward a Power 2. If we do that, it probably benefits a lot of schools. And if you can sever college football from the other sports, maybe you got a way forward.
Now, Sam, I did see some athletes take to Twitter regarding it, those that played in some smaller sports out in the Pac-12. I hadn't seen a whole lot, though, but I did see a few reports there. And, I do take into account certain sports that are smaller at schools that it may have a bigger toll on. But ultimately, I think because I'm an outcome guy, I'm like, well, where are we trying to go with this? And ultimately, I think the only place to go is if everything stays the same and you stay in the conference and you don't split it up like you were kind of talking about with, you take the old model opposed to the new model. If you don't do that, the only thing that makes sense to me is having literal divisions that mirror what they do in the pros, and then you keep people regionally, but they stay in the bigger conference.
Yeah, I think that's probably a way forward. Sure. I don't know exactly the key is if you go to a Power 2, you have to have a relationship with the TV networks that reflects everyone getting an equal share. Because the way it stands right now, Michigan would get way more or whatever. You have to find a way to get everybody to be all in on that. And the advantage of having a giant league is you're not playing, a gulag of teams. Like you've got your soft teams back in there again. It's, you can go play here and here. And, the teams that always used to win 10 can still win 10. And that's your reward and that kind of thing. Certainly there's probably a way to do it. Again, if we go to a Power 2, then I think everybody's going to be happy again. So let's just be patient and see how it plays out.
Sam McKewon, we appreciate your time, man. Thanks so much. We'll talk again next week. That is Sam McKewon, sports editor at the Omaha World Herald, at SW McKewon OWH on Twitter.